Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a disassembly video for you of this little guy. This is the Spyderco Gayle Bradley 2. Oh, there. It's a little tight at the moment. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and break it down. But first, as always with Spyderco, I got a little warning for you. If you take this knife apart, it's going to void your factory warranty. They're usually not so dickish about it, but it's still a little bit unpleasant, and I wish they'd change that policy. So let's go ahead and start breaking this little guy down. This is a very interesting knife, one I've had my eye on for a long time. In a lot of ways, it's appealing to me because, well, it's a subtle design. It's got great steel. It's got, it's a great knife on paper. But it's also very big. It's bigger than something that I would normally carry. When I carry some really big knives, but they have to justify their hugitude, if you will. Size, I suppose, is the technical term there. But there you go. So I've just popped out the 3 screws here, your pivot and the other ones. And by the way, that was a Torx T8 for the pivot screw and looks like a Torx T6 for the smaller ones. And I believe we've got our knife disassembled here. So lift off the carbon fiber G10 overlay there. Whoa there. This needs some love. That's okay. That's why I'm here, to give knives love. Perhaps a strange way to put it. Gonna go ahead and set some paper towel down on the table here. Come on now. Can tell there's some good manufacturing tolerances here because I'm having trouble lifting this little guy off. And that's okay, because the standoffs, there we go. You can see here that the standoffs actually have milled into them a little bit of a collar, which is a nice thing. Wow. Yeah, this needs some love here. The design on it, though, is pretty simple. And so seeing, by the way, that the screws have got the... Oh, I'm going to have to take this thing all apart, but I'm going to go ahead and do it, because why not, right? You can see here that the standoffs have this little metal piece captive between the other side's carbon fiber and the metal here. So that way, if I really want to get this guy cleaned up, I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. Normally, I wouldn't go out of my way because I'm also going to have to pop off the clip screws here. I can use the same driver. Yeah, beautiful. But, I figure I might as well here. The knife looks like it's seen some use, and I want it to be in great condition when it goes back to my buddy who loaned this to me. I believe his name is Dallas. So... there we go, popping this guy off, pop the standoff screw out of the way. You can see here, by the way, I've just noticed that the standoff holes here are asymmetrical, which means these standoffs only go in one way. So if I'm struggling with that later and forget about it, then just yell at your screen very loudly, Nick, you idiot. There we go, you gotta put them in the right direction. Hopefully your shouts will echo through time and space, and I will learn what I need to learn. So we're seeing here that the standoff screws are the same on either side, but that the clip screws are a little bit longer. But now that I've done this and popped out the pivot, we can separate these two things away from one another, and we are good to go. All right, that is a fully disassembled Spyderco Gayle Bradley 2. Grab myself some frog lube here, because I'm going to need to use it. And go ahead and just start by degreasing the world. Gonna go ahead and use just some rubbing alcohol here, 91%. Your percentage may vary. Don't think it matters super much. But this just lets me get the gunk off of these handles. You can see some skeletonization here to reduce weight. Nice thing. If this were my personal knife rather than a loaner, what I'd probably do at this stage is just use a Spyderco Shopmaker stone, using a Q-tip as an example here, and just kind of round the edges a little bit, because this does have some sharp edges, particularly right in here. And I would also probably Dremel out this little area here, because it makes it a little harder. But either way, it's not my knife, and so that just has the effect of kind of reducing a little bit of the sharpness of these edges of the metal liners here. Not a huge deal, but it is a deal. So there you go. Go ahead and wipe the carbon fiber off here. And note again, this is not carbon fiber throughout. It's a carbon fiber on the top, and maybe we can even see the line here. Maybe. Come on now. Well, either way, it's there. The other side, it's just G10. no big deal, but at the same time, it does feel a little cheapy. Next to, the fact pretty much every other manufacturer uses complete carbon fiber there. Oh, so this is interesting. This little, not 100% sure what that's about. It must just be to keep the G10 from shifting around. You see these little positioning pins, the little metal inset into the G10. Yeah, and it just drops into this hole here for whatever reason. And I guess there we go. Okay, cool, sure. Honestly, that's one of the reasons I like reviewing knives a lot, and pens, and to some extent the lights, but is that they're very simple machines. They've got complexity, they've got, use and whatnot, but they're not, it's not the case like a computer or something like that there are 50,000 little parts in there, and, with a computer you can look at the chip and whatnot, and you can disassemble the components, but at the end of the day, you're not going to know what that little chunk of silicone on the motherboard there is doing, necessarily, unless you designed it. Whereas on a knife, it's pretty intuitive. You can break the thing down, take it apart, and see, oh, okay, that right there is the stop pin, because it's there, and whatnot. Oh, that was a little much there. Speaking of the stop pin, where the heck is the stop pin on this guy? That's a really interesting question, actually. I'm trying to figure out how exactly this knife is stopped. My current theory is that... this is the stop pin. Alright, never mind. No theories. Got everything pretty much degreased here. Trying to make sure, get all the gunk off of there, get all the gunk off of there. Beautiful. Now I just want to clean off the washers real quick, because they do tend to get a little junky, a little gunky, a little unpleasant here and there. It's okay. It's life. Come on now. Perfect. Again, if it was my knife, I'd probably do a little bit of washer polish in here, but these are actually in pretty good shape, so I'm not going to bother. There's a whole world of very subtle knife modifications that you can make that just make it a little bit more yours. And you're kind of effectively doing some of the finishing that the factory didn't have the time or the money or the effort to do. Just cleaning off the... There we go. Beautiful. And I like doing those things where I can. Okay, so now I'm going to start reassembling this guy. I am going to use a pretty generous coating of frog lube here, just because I want to make sure that these liners here do not rust up against the G10 here. So, just kind of putting on a thin coating, not even really going to bother to wipe it off on this side here, because, well, there's no reason to. Frog lube tends to be a little bit better. It tends to adhere a little bit better when it is warm. So, there'd be an argument for putting the parts in the oven at a very low setting for a little while before I do this. But at the same time, for this, really what I'm looking to do is prevent the oxidization. In the event that, for instance, some water, the whole knife gets wet, and there's some water that gets up in there. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of clean this area off now, the area of the pivot. And I'm going to go ahead and dip a Q-tip on into there. Actually, I'll pull the G10 off before I do that. Come on now. There we go. Just to make sure that I'm getting the pivot area completely cleaned out. There we go. So now there's a nice thick coating of frog lube on the other side here, preventing corrosion. And I'll go ahead, yeah, what the heck, I'll do the other side. Well, my hands are all lubricated for frogs. It's like armed for bears. Oh, that ain't right. Ignore that statement. I moved to have that struck from the official record. It is frighteningly easy for me to say things that are very, very wrong, but seem very fine at the time. Pocket peckers and whatnot. I swear, that one made perfect sense to me. Alrighty, go ahead and rinse off the hands there, and then go ahead and just wipe off the area of the pivot to make sure that the frog lube ain't interacting there. Beautiful. And I'm going to go ahead and rebuild it from this side first. So how I'm going to do that is by first putting the clip back on, because that'll secure the G10 to the rest of it. And I am going to go ahead and use just a little tiny bit of Loctite here, because the clip screws are something that face a fair amount of stress. So just take the Loctite, drop it on there, push this in, and just start screwing. Oh, again, I need to just keep my mouth shut. Scary thing is that I have actually taught classes before, and yeah, it happens there too. Luckily, never got fired. Another thing to keep in mind is that M4 steel here, which is what's being used, is it's a great steel, but it is not the most corrosion-resistant steel ever. Far from it, as a matter of fact. And so I am going to hit the blade with a little bit of frog lube as well in this process. Again, not that it's going to be super necessary, but it is something I want to make sure I got under control. And especially the little inside parts here, like the blade tang. Those are very, very easy to get all rusted. And, yeah, so just give a little coating here. With a steel like M4, you do want to take care of it. You want to make sure that you don't put it to bed wet. You wipe it down regularly. You hit it with some oil, some frog lube, something like that. And so I know that, you know, my viewer's going to have to take care of it after a while, but especially given that it might get stuck at a post office for a little while, I want to make sure it's in good shape for him, you know. And I'm going to be carrying it, and it's humid as hell here, sadly. Beautiful. Now, next step is going to be to reinstall these standoffs, 1, 2, and 3. And recall, you don't have to shout at me through time, that half of this has been milled off, so you can see there's a little flat portion there. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the first one in here. Taking care to align the flat portion. There we go. That's popped in. Now, find a standoff screw. And I'm going to go ahead and a little tiny dab of Loctite. Drop that on there. Oh, a little premature there. Let's see if I can do this with my left hand. I am not an ambidextrous man. Alas. Just trying to pop this guy in here. Oh, come on, you little bugger. I am the human. I have opposable thumbs. I'm going to win this. Don't fight me. Let's see if I can get the screw at least in there. There we go. Got it. Ah. See, I won. And find the final standoff. Get the flat side. Make sure flat side is down. Come on now. Oh, did I just know? Okay, it's back in there. Okay, a little Loctite. And drop this on in. And wipe off the bit of Loctite. Okay, so now I got the knife back to a good partially disassembled state. Honestly, most of the time, if I knew that I was the last person to service it, this is probably the state in which I would stop. I would break it down only this far, not bother removing all these other guys, not bother pulling the clip. But again, I want to be kind to my readers, so, viewer. So, there you go. Now let's go ahead and pop through the pivot. Go ahead and use a little bit of your 10-weight nano oil here on the pivot, both to help me get it through and to lubricate the path for the blade. Just inserting. Come on. Needs a little cajoling. There we go. Oh, there we go. It's cajoled. Beautiful. I'm going to drop a washer onto there. Nice dollop of nano oil. I've been experimenting with other lubes lately. I probably said this in other disassembly videos, but you know what? Doesn't matter. And, you know, nano oil's still fine, but trying some other things. This looks good to go. Good to go. Go ahead and lube up the tent hole. There. And just use the side of the oiler to spread that along here. And there. Beautiful. Sometimes you need to disengage the lock bar to get everything to seat right. Drop some nano oil there. Kind of distribute it. You doing that. A little more there. Okay, got a stop pin, got some back spaces, washer. Yeah, everything's good to go here. Let's go ahead and drop this guy back on. Actually, I just kind of did that backwards in that I'm going to need to pop the back spaces in first in all likelihood because they were strugglesome earlier on. Oh, come on, you little bugger. There we go. So I'll drop the back spaces on. Come on now. Just trying to get these little guys here to engage. The fall in there. And I've fallen back onto the pivot. Alright, let's try and get them vertical first. Okay, I got one, I got two. There we go. 3 back spaces. Oh, now if you look here, my little washer has slipped off. I'm going to go ahead and use my little oiler tool here just to drop it back into place. Now pop the pivot through. Oh, not quite. There we go. Washers are in. Beautiful. Alrighty. So I'm going to go ahead and reopen the blade. That takes the tension off the lock bar, makes it easier for it to not fight me. And pop in the rest. I'm going to start with my screws in the back here. I'm going to get a little Loctite on them. This Loctite is almost dead. Let's go ahead and drop it on there. Oh. I got that just kind of finger tight at the moment. On knives with good tolerances, it shouldn't really matter, but there's always the knives like the hinderers and whatnot where if you have the handle screws screwed down before you get the blade and you hold the blade in the right centered position, you have yourself a bad time. It's ugly, but so I make a habit of not doing the handle screws until everything's centered. And the pivot's in. Switch bits real quick. Oh. And my hands are covered in frog lube. Bam. Pop that out of there. Pop this in here. There we go. It's nicely Loctited. Okay, so let's shut the knife. So right now, the pivot is way too loose. You can see that the lock bar is pressing it against the side of the... So let's go ahead and tighten this guy down. Okay, now it is absolutely tightened down, and it is absolutely centered. So I'm going to use this opportunity, given the centering, to just make sure the blade, the handle screws are fully tightened. You never want to go past, you know, hand tight, and in some ways it's nice that this little driver here doesn't offer you too much torque, but because, you know, you run the risk of getting it so tight you're never getting it apart again. But there we go. Okay, the action right now is crappy because the pivot is just way too tight. So let's pop the pivot off one more time here. Well, at least loosen it up a little bit. And get it to a place where there's no blade play, but it still opens and closes smoothly. That's nice. Oh, yeah. That's beautiful. Not a hint of play. Side to side or front to back. Oh yeah, watch that. That's beautiful. And I'm going to hit the blade one more time with some of the frog lube because it is the M4. But we are all good to go here. That was nice. Goes back together very nicely. This is a well-designed knife. I can't say I'm in love with the number of handle screws it's got, but it's a burly knife, and so that's kind of a compensation. It's a consequence of it. So anyways, this right here is your Spyderco Gayle Bradley 2. Very interesting. Looking forward to carrying this guy for some review here. And keep an eye out for the review, which is going to be coming up about 3 days after you watch this video. Hope this is interesting to you. Have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of the day. And remember to always keep your M4 in good condition. Bye now.